And actually, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because I know me.
You know, so that's our life mission. That's the McShin's mission.
You don't have to understand my boundaries to respect them.
Well, no, I'm the president and co-founder of McShin, a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorders.
How do you go about fixing the damage in the trust between the family after you get out?
Okay, I gotta work on that.
Celebrating my 6 months, didn't have a cake.
Yeah.
Gosh, she's scary.
The donors pull up my topic. You know, the donors pull up my topic. I want you to think about your best you, your best self. Right? Your people probably saying, man, when he goes to jail, he is the individual that I thought he was going to be. He talking like he got good sense. He done gained weight. He looking good. You know, and the question becomes, man, what's going to happen once he leave here? You know, and look, this is my own personal story. My wife told me years ago, now you are becoming the man that I thought you could. To get the visual and you understand that this works. If you see somebody, this is what somebody told me a long time ago, it helps to see somebody in your neighborhood. Because the message is, if they can do it, I can do it. It's the same message we do when we come in and we announce our clean time. We ain't announcing our clean time to put us above nobody. We announcing our clean time to let you know if I could do it, you could do it. I mean, if you stay around long enough, you'll know what kind of guy I was on the street. Slimy, dirty, you know? Yeah. My mother told my sister, man, now he talking like he got good sense. Because at one time they started thinking, man, you know, mental health, mental illness. Something's wrong with him. He's crazy, you know? But that's what the drug will do to you, man. You know, I'm thinking today, I was like, man, you know, I was going through this, man, with heroin. Now they got fentanyl out there, you know? So, you know, I was like, I wanted the drug thing ain't going to never stop. That ain't going to change. You got to change. You got to change, you know? Because, I mean, man, now that this fentanyl thing, I hate to say it, I'm careful what I say in certain surroundings, certain situations. But I see this thing, man, is like Russian roulette. You know? Somebody, you know, it's suicide. I asked the dude in Pomona, I said, man, do you ever have any fear of getting high? Man, I was at a Super Bowl party, and the guy told me his younger brother had OD'd. Got him to the hospital and all, they brought him back, hit him with the Narcan and all that. They brought him back, you know? And he know the guy that he scored from. He know this guy. And my dude was like, man, why would you mess with him? You know what he doing? He's selling anything on the street. You know? He don't care nothing about y'all being friends. He's looking at American greed. You know? dollars and cents. He's trying to get some money, trying to get bank. You know, you become secondary. You know, I mean, for me, when I learned what the system was all about, what the drugs was all about, when I learned about the big picture, man, I changed. I changed. This thing hit me to the core. Because this right here, my personal definition is, this is legalized slavery. For black, white, Chinese, I don't care what color you are, what creed, nationality, what religion you are, this is legalized slavery. We go from one slave to another. Fentanyl, legalized slavery. Heroin, legalized slavery. Now they're sprinkling fentanyl on cocaine, legalized slavery. You know, they got you, man, they got you. You can't fulfill whatever purpose you got. Man, when you hooked on drugs, man, and alcohol, man, you can't do that. I don't care if your purpose is to raise your child. You can't do that, not efficiently, no way. You know? So, I mean, why are you here, man? Why are you here, man? You know, just think about the situation, man. Try to look at self and what's going on with self, you know? I mean, man, I got to shake John's hand, man. John called me 3-4 months ago. Man, look, I had just had, my mother had just died. And I was at home trying to figure out what I was going to do. What was my next step? Telephone rings, and it was John. Like, man, I got a project. I need you on, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, when John talking, I wasn't even hearing him. Because I was like, thank you, Lord. You know what I'm saying? You answered my prayers. You know what I'm saying? You showed me the way. You directed me. You know? Through John. God works through people. That's why we're here. He's working through us. Works through John. Everybody else, you know? Man, and I talked to Carl earlier about being efficient. Do y'all know, man, y'all got some familiar faces y'all see every time we have a meeting here. Sheriff, Pam, me, John, Steve, Art, y'all see us every time we're here, man. And that's it, man. That's about being efficient, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's like several different messages that you can get from this thing, and you need to grab something. You need to grab something to help change this, that inside of you, you know? But, man, I thank John, man, often. My wife thanks John. Before John called, my wife was like, Marsha, you think you can go back down to Pomoke and start doing groups again? That might be a good idea. You know? Rather than sit around the house, you know what I mean? John calls, you know. My daughter, and let me tell you how it is with this thing right here. My daughter, I'm talking to her, and she says, with Dad, how many days are you doing the jail thing? I said, it's once a week. And she said, but I hear you talking about it all the time. The point being, man, I prepare. I just don't want to come in here, you know, unprepared. I got more respect for y'all than that. I got more respect for myself than that. I want to prepare, you know. And so she heard me talking about it. I got a telephone. That's my brain now. I got a telephone with a lot of topics in there to talk about. And as it goes, I never get to talk about the topic because, man, I'm at home in the shower or I'm running around getting donuts. You know what I'm saying? And the topic jumps up, you know. I got to tell you this, though. I got up 9 o'clock this morning, went on Williamsburg Road to Country Donut Store. They was closed yesterday, so I couldn't order the donuts. I got up 9 o'clock this morning so I could go order the donuts. They said, this is all we got. We are depleted. Our inventory is depleted. And I said, wait, this Valentine's Day. She said, I don't know. She said, I know we got one guy that's out. He had surgery. I don't know when the cook is coming in. And, you know, so I looked at what they had. I was like, I'll be back. So I run up here. This is what I'm doing all day. I run up here. I pick up some flowers for my wife, and I take them to her job. I work with the security guy. And look, I call, hey, Carl, look, I'm bringing her flowers. I don't want her to see me. I want her to think that the flowers were delivered. he said, well, meet me around the back. I said, okay. And I did. I dropped the flowers off, and I said, while I'm up this way, I'll go to the other country donut store, you know, which is in 8900 block of West Broad, you know. I go there, and it was the same scenario. They closed on Mondays, and their inventory was a little depleted. I was like, okay, what I'm going to do now? You know, I said, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to get donuts from all over the city. You know what I'm saying? On my way home from the country donut, I get off downtown and go by Sugar Shack. Sugar Shack was good. I got a dozen of donuts from them. Go home, you know, and change, and I set up my thing for my wife. I stopped by Lytle and got her an orchid, and I stopped and got a card, and I got a candy. You know, the candy is for me, all right? Stopped, got the card and all that, you know what I'm saying? Went home and set up my display real nice. And I said, I need to be early because I'm going to go by Dunkin' Donuts. My wife said, go by Dunkin'. Right? I said, okay. And I'm getting on the interstate, and I see all this traffic. I was like, man, I'm going to be late, you know? Then I was like, man, when I saw the traffic backed up, I was like, I can't. I jump off at Mechanicsville because Chaco Valley Bridge was jammed up. I jump off at Mechanicsville, came through Highland Park, you know what I mean, and hit Glenside, then went on down to Staples Mill, and I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts. When I went in there and I saw what they had, they went through the same thing. They told me, they said, we don't have enough donuts to take us through 8 o'clock. I said, well, anyway, you satisfied my purpose. Because, you know, I promised these people I was going to bring them some donuts, and, you know, and I told them I'm a man of my word, you know. So we're going to eat all the donuts. You know what I'm saying? We're going to eat all the donuts. But I got to give it to you, man. John Shinhauser, co-founder of McShin, has made all of this possible, him and his wife, and I'm just glad to be a part of it, you know? Hey, John, you got your mic on?
I think.
Yeah,
It's up to Art now to turn it on.
I love this guy. I love this guy right here.
You know,
This is my guy.
what Marshall don't realize, I probably get more out of being in Marshall's presence when we do this thing than he gets. So it's kind of, you know, recovery's a weird thing. You know, people get fed in different ways and means.
Feed me, John. Feed me.
Yeah. You know, I'm John Shinhauser, president and co-founder of McShin, and as you know, we come in here usually every other week. We go to the other jail the alternate weeks. I'll tell you the truth, this is about my favorite meeting right here. And I think the reason it's one of my favorites is because it's a small, intimate setting, and I don't have to yell, and I don't have to rely on speakers. You can hear what's going on. But before I introduce the speaker and the chef, I want to hit on one thing. You know, this is a special gathering because what you got is some serious old-timers in recovery, serious newcomers that are committed to doing this service work, serious elected official and her staff committed to seeing to it that you guys get, you know, quality messaging about how to recover from substance use disorder, the disease of addiction. I know some of y'all are listening because as y'all get out, I see y'all out on the street and you're showing up, and you know, so this engagement is very valuable. But I want to mention one thing. I think one thing we all got in common, everybody in recovery has got in common, is we had to do the work. We had to quit relying on trying to figure out a way out of our problems and our situations by doing the same stuff we've always done. At some point in time, each one of us surrendered to our will, surrendered to our way of doing things, and we listened to the recovering people. Okay, how do we do this? What do I really need to do? Well, I'm glad you asked, because now it's your turn, it's your turn to start doing the work. And what the work looks like, first things first, stop using. You know, the second thing, tell somebody with some recovery where it hurt, share our experience with you. You follow me? Because right now what we're doing is bringing in people, sharing their experience, hoping you'll catch a hit. You know, yeah, I hurt in that area, and that's what you did. Well, maybe that'll work for me too. But as you're engaging and moving along in your recovery, it's up to you to tell on your disease. And by telling on your disease, you get quality feedback from those that had them same thoughts, and they successfully navigated those thoughts and turn them into action and turn them into recovery. So that's probably a lot, but you got to start thinking about that. Nobody's responsibility in your chair except the person in your chair to do the work. And the work ain't so bad. If you compare the work to what it's like to be on the street, ripping and running, that's work. You know? Yeah, you're in here and a lot of you got duties and details and whatnot. Come on. They're not asking a lot out of you. So do the work you got to do and you will get the benefits for sure. Now, before I invite up the speaker, as always, Chef, thank you so much for letting us come up in here on a regular basis. This is, of course, Valentine's Day, and I'm glad we were able to share some intimate donuts together. But we can have an intimate shout out from the chef. Come on up, Chef. Brandon, sit down. You're in the right place. Get your seat right there, Bubba. Brandon's a regular inside and outside.
So first and foremost, a happy Valentine's Day. Same to you. I have a significant other, my husband, who loves me enough to give me up on Valentine's Day because he knows that this is like near and dear to my heart. So excited that we have John's better half, literally, his better half here to share her story with her. I'm excited about that. Because like I shared earlier, I've known her for a while, and I see her, and like she's this amazing woman. Never knowing her story, but just looking at John and saying, "God, she got to be dynamic to be able to deal with John." But listen, John is like an amazing guy, and I hope you see week after week like how committed he is. Like that commitment, I was just sharing with them before we started, that the type of commitment that they have and that they display can not only help you with a substance use disorder, it can help you with any of your inequities in your life. You know, I don't profess to have an issue with substances, right? I mean, unless you're counting food. And so, yeah, but it also helps you with anything in your life that you want to get straight. If you practice some of these principles and ideas that they share with you, like things can be better. And just to know that even when things get better, you're going to have a bad day, but learning to share and give it away and let somebody help you, like that's how you get through it. So just don't let this pass you by. Absorb it, take it in. I am grateful.
Oh,
thank you to John and everybody. Like we have so many people that are like showing up for you. It's got to feel good, you know, believing in you until you can believe in yourself. And I just want your families and your loved ones to be able to see what I'm looking out and seeing now. Because, like, I'm seeing people that, like, have bright futures, you know. Your destiny and what's going to happen for you is all up to you. You can have and be anything you want to be. And we're showing you week after week with the folks that are coming here. So, again, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm excited, so can't wait to hear Carol.
Thank you, Sheriff. Give the Sheriff a hand. Now, I knew I had a busy week coming up, and I didn't think it through. You know, last week I'm thinking, I had to go to Atlanta yesterday. I got up at 2:30 yesterday morning to catch a 6 o'clock flight to go to Atlanta to testify at a House, I don't even know what, the House of Representatives in the capital of Atlanta, to try to prevent a criminal justice law being passed that was going to imprison a couple 100,000 people in Georgia. So I'm a big harm reduction guy. So we went down there. I did my job. I got in late last night about 1 o'clock. I got to get up tomorrow morning 3 o'clock because I got to catch another 6 o'clock flight because I'm actually going on a golf trip, a fun trip. But about a week ago, I'm sitting there thinking, shit, Tuesday is Valentine's Day. And I'm thinking, damn, I got to go the day before. I got to leave the next day. I'm going to be tired and cranky. And I got this bright idea. I know what I'll do. My wife will have to spend the day with me, the evening, if I get her to speak at the meeting, right? Because we dope fiends, we addicts. We come up with some slick stuff every now and then. And my wife doesn't never say no to, doing service work and helping and caring and sharing. So I was really excited that she agreed to come and speak tonight. That way I knew we'd at least be together this time. And I didn't make a dinner reservation or anything, so I'm in the doghouse for that. But I'm sure we can figure out something on the way home because we're smart people. But I want to share this with you, and you'll like this. Me and my wife, our first Valentine's Day together, I want to tell you this story. She takes me on a ski trip. And I've never been really skiing before, so we go to the ski resort with another recovering couple. And she was surprised that I learned to ski. She got me a ski instructor, and I was skiing Black Diamonds that weekend. It was East Coast, so it wasn't that dangerous. But that night, she had this very romantic, sexy evening planned. And we were sharing a ski chalet in the mountains with another couple, and me and Carol had the upper loft area, and the other couple had the lower area. So here we are, getting very romantic, candles, flower petals. We're getting in bed, getting naked, getting ready to do the nasty, right? And she gets this bright idea. She's going to, cover me in chocolate and, lick the chocolate, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, it was getting good. So she microwaves the chocolate. and she doesn't realize the temperature. So I'm sitting there, close your eyes. I got a surprise. I'm going, all right, this is great. And next thing I know, molten hot chocolate hit me. And I jumped up and screamed, ah! And the couple down below jumping up. What's going on? And I'm involved with like the greatest girl in the world, but she ain't that bright when it comes to certain things, man. But it ended well. It wasn't quite third-degree burns. I'm sure we finished up business all right. But we've been together 26 years now. Life's good. We're blessed. She's a wonderful woman. She's the Mick and McShin. There would be no McShin Foundation if it weren't for this woman. That's a different story for a different day. But how about a warm welcome for my wife, Carol?
The Chocolate Master. Hey, everybody, I'm an addict. My name's Carol.
Hey, Carol.
I'm also a woman in long-term recovery, and for me, that means I've been drug and alcohol-free for over 25 years. And my recovery's allowed me to become a wife, although not one great at chocolate, a stepmom, a grandmother, and a small businesswoman that fights for the rights of people with addiction and mental illness in Washington, D.C. And, I don't have as big of a presence as John. I'm not as loud as John. I'm not as funny as John. But what I have to share with you is my real, authentic recovery story. And for me, that story starts off in Greensboro, North Carolina. I am the youngest of 4 kids. My dad was born in Ireland. He came over when he was a little boy, but he still was very Irish, and we definitely identified with being Irish Catholic. He didn't have much education, was raised with next to no money. And so he was consumed with making sure that his family was going to do better than he had done growing up. And our house was driven by the force of addiction, unfortunately, so like so many of us, right? My dad, while he was well-intended, he had a terrible illness. And my mother dabbled in it too. But like a lot of us who have intergenerational addiction or intergenerational shame or intergenerational poverty or intergenerational other problems, it's my belief that the shame and guilt that our ancestors may have faced, that it does get passed down. And that was sort of how it was in my house. There was a lot of shame and guilt and secrets around the behavior around the addiction. Because, it'd be one thing if all we ever did was use drugs. It's a whole nother matter about the behaviors that go around with the using drugs, right? The beating on people, the sexual abuse, the letting our kids down, not providing, not being emotionally available, locking that bedroom door so you can use and having your little kids pound on it. All that stuff is real, and those behaviors can affect us the rest of our life. And so I was the youngest of 3 girls, 1 boy, and my sisters were like willowy, thin, beautiful. They played piano. They were, they even curtsied when we had guests over. And there was a lot of music in my house. My father was very musical, and he passed that down to his kids, and I was not. I mean, I was so tone deaf. I couldn't play piano. I couldn't do any of that. And I was fat. And back then, people didn't know anything about eating disorders. They didn't know any of that. My mom's best idea to deal with a fat kid was to take all the groceries that were like treat food that a kid would be after and hide it in all my brothers and sisters' rooms, so that when I went down to try to go pilfer out of the cookie drawer, that there'd be nothing in there. And, you know, she did the best she could with what she had, right? But it made me have this lifetime obsession with my looks, my appearance, what other people thought of me, because she was raised that women are supposed to have this dainty, delicate front to us, right? And I was anything but dainty or delicate. And I felt less than. I was constantly seeking for approval. If I had to give my talk tonight a theme, not just because it's Valentine's, it would be looking for love. You know, I'm a true believer that if you don't get love and acceptance when you're this big, you can end up going and seeking it out in some of the worst places possible for the rest of your life. And that was the case with me. I had a mother that was so disappointed that her life was turning out like this, you know? It's like, I didn't sign up to be married to an alcoholic who was doing all these abominable things behind closed doors to me and to our kids. I didn't sign up to not be able to go out to parties because my husband's too wasted to go or do anything. He's embarrassed. We can't have kids over because of the way he is and the way he behaves. And she got very depressed about the turn that her life took. So she started taking pills and stuff like that to sleep. And I just was not raised with a lot of, I had everything on the outside that you could need. I had a great, home, food, clothing, all that. We were blessed to be able to go to good schools. I was lucky that while I didn't have much cooking on the parent front, I had teachers that cared about me and instilled in me a love of learning. And I'm convinced that love of learning is what kept me from sort of hanging out permanently in jails and prisons, because I could have easily stayed here. And so that looking for love thing just was like this inside gnawing thing. And not just love like romantic love, for acceptance, for approval. I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to feel normal. I wanted to feel like one of the gang. And on the inside, I felt different, alien, like I didn't measure up, like I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't thin enough, I wasn't talented enough. I went to Catholic schools where all the nuns would be like, well, you're not like your sister Susan, or you're not like this one or that one. And I was left-handed, and I can remember I don't know if anybody else went to Catholic schools, but back in my day, if you were left-handed, they said it was a sign of the damn devil, right? And they'd take those rulers and beat your hand and change those big fat red pencils. I'm aging myself here, but they would put them in your right hand and try to make you be left-handed, be right-handed and take them out of your left hand. And all that stuff just compounded onto that feeling different stuff. When I was 6, my father started sexually abusing me. And I had that behavior in my life, and I kept it a secret from 6 to 11. And at 11, I told my mom, and she slapped my face and told me that was the filthiest thing she had ever heard, not to ever let something like that come out of my mouth again. But within 2 weeks, all my dad's stuff was packed, and he was out of the house. So I got this confusing message that you can't tell the truth about a thing when something bad's happening, but you're still going to have your world turned upside down because, you know, all my other siblings were older. They were going off to board. Everybody was trying to get the hell out of there whatever way they could. I had a sister that got married when she was 16 to her high school teacher. I had one that went to boarding school. Everybody was heading out of Dodge as quick as they could because it was just totally dysfunctional in our house. And also felt like my father was like larger than life. Like one of the things from my childhood, just to give you all a sense of my story, other people might play games with their family or whatever. My father was so obsessed with money that our family game, before we got too broken up to do anything together as a family, we would have these things on the weekend called money scrambles. And he would take, back in my day, those 50-cent, you know, half a dollar or silver dollars, like a big thing, you know. And he would take all this change, a couple dollar bills. He'd put all four of us in a line like that, and he'd be up there, and he'd fling money out in the middle of the living room floor, and then we would all dive for it. But he would hand it out to bigger kids by holding their leg or holding their arm, and so that I could, you know, get to my share. And he might point a few out because my oldest sister was 10 years older than me. And, you know, to say that that gave you a heightened sense of the importance of money is an understatement. I mean, I became just as obsessed with it. And right as I started getting to be 6, 7, 8, his business took off. And this was like when all of the building of the South was happening, right? And he was getting all these contracts to do all the lighting and all these large commercial buildings and housing developments and neighborhoods and all that. And he started hitting it big. And as soon as he started doing well, his addiction just cratered, man. And he had other people. The enterprise was big enough to hide him and his addiction in it. And what I learned to do was to befriend these people who were covering for him so that I could get paid. And that's what I did my whole life. When I was 12, the emotional pain that I was feeling about being different was one of the side effects for me. And this isn't true for everybody, but some people who've been sexually abused, they become incapable of having intimacy with another person. And back in the day, they called it frigid or cold or whatever. And I could not explain to anybody why I was that way. But if you'd come near me, if you were a guy, and of course I was dying for your attention, but if you actually showed it to me physically, I would just freeze like this. And you know all the names you give to girls who say, come hither, and then when you come, they're shut down. You give them all kinds of names, and I don't go into them what they are here. But that's what I was called, because I was flirty and this and that and doing cartwheels looking for your attention. But then when you gave it to me, I couldn't function. I'd freeze. And so I went my entire young life with no boyfriends. And one of the most convenient things I learned when I was about 12 was that when other people were playing spin the bottle or those kind of games, I could go in the back bedroom of the house and cut up weed into bags for people to sell it, so that I had a duty, I had a role, I had a purpose, and I didn't have to be out there with them doing that thing because I couldn't pull it off, and I knew it. And so I became the guy's girl that helped with drug dealing. And I could never be the dealer myself because I had already gotten that the same way I was about food, where I would eat it and eat it and eat it and eat it and hide and sneak. I was the same way about drugs and alcohol. I knew by the time I was 12, when I first started using, that I had to get my game face on before I connected with my friends. You know what I mean? I knew that was off. I knew it that young. And I was that compulsive and that sneaky, and all the lies that go along with being that compulsive, that sneaky, that young. And it added to that sense that you're different, you're a freak, something's wrong with you. And the only thing that lifted that pain up off of me was the same exact thing that I saw killing my father, which was, at first, booze. Man, I felt fine when I was drunk. I felt connected. I felt pretty. I stood tall. I felt thin. I felt like I belonged. And I did not want to stop that feeling because I hadn't been comfortable in my skin my whole life. And so all of that started, this kind of just compulsion with using, and it went on like it does, right? It went on. I was fortunate enough to stay in school. I was fortunate enough I wanted to get out of the house so bad that I went to college. I was fortunate enough to have a family that could send me. So I had all this privilege, right? But no love. And I'm not crying poor little rich girl here, but it's tough to make sense of all of that. And tough to be controlled by your dad's money. And tough to not carry that with you as an adult. And unfortunately, I did. I got kicked out of college for ODing at a frat party. And back in those days, they'd want to cover that up so that we wouldn't keep records of it. So they just told me I was going to graduate early. I landed on my sister's house in Washington, D.C., because unfortunately they told my parents that I was an IV drug user and had OD'd at a frat party. So they were, okay, we're done. We know you said you want to go to law school, but we're done. This is it, And my dad was so incapacitated then that he was still alive, but he wasn't making decisions himself. But he had this mistress / COO who continued to feed my addiction and feed me and pay me. And, I probably told her I must have gone to 15 proms a year, right? Because I always needed a $500 dress. I always needed this and that. And because I was the apple of my father's eye, she just kept paying me. And I kept using. And finally, I had found, I was planning on going to law school at night. I was working at a law firm as a paralegal. And what that meant for me, this was before there was even email, right? I was having to hand stamp a 5-digit number in the bottom right-hand corner of 30,000 documents to getting ready to go to trial. And boom, boom. I mean, just all day, every day. And this senator had come to this law firm to open up what was first going to be a lobbying practice. And lobbying is just when you try to influence the laws that are passed in Washington and Congress. And he felt sorry for me. I was sitting there all day, every day, stamping these documents, stoned as you could be, because that was the only way I could get through it, right? And he started having me run errands for him. And, as luck would have it, or as fate has it, he was also a raging addict. And we discovered that we had some of the same interests. And this is back in the early 80s when people had 3 and 4 martini lunches and stuff, So I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I wasn't going to have to screw with law school and all the work that was going to take and all the eating into my partying time at night. And I could still have a good career. And I was being told that they wanted me to take people out drinking and partying and entertaining breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And I'm thinking, I have died and gone to heaven. Like, this is still when I could, go out. You know how you used to, go out and have fun and you'd call using partying? And then all of a sudden that invisible curtain drops down where it's no longer partying, it's no longer fun. You're too freaking paranoid to be with anyone else. You're smoking in your closet, hearing helicopters and blue lights. And so this was still that part where it was fun. And so for a while, I excelled. I would take people out, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I had no boyfriends. I told you that, right? I had no family, had no kids. So I was on it. I was at work and entertaining. And I would get you 10 times more wasted than I would be. I'm not proud of this, but I'd get information out of you about what kind of legislation your boss was thinking about introducing. I would take it right back to the office, and we would trade on it on Wall Street. I mean, it was just, and there was thousands of me's like that gathering information around that town about what was going on in the Capitol. I was one among many, and I was a little junior nobody, but I got a taste for the game. And think about it. What could be more like addiction and dysfunction than politics? No offense, Sheriff. But I mean, there's the lies, there's the deceit, there's the backstabbing, there's the intelligence is power, intelligence and information is currency, and it's a commodity that can be used against people. This all felt so familiar to me. It was like, okay, I'm at home. This is a sick, dysfunctional system that I'm going to learn how to navigate, and I'm going to capitalize on it. And by the way, it allows you and encourages you to stay wasted. So I was like, okay, I'm good. I've made my home. And so that worked until it didn't, right? Like all of us know, we get to that point where that old behavior worked until a few times Carol got up on the table at the bar and literally showed her ass and, did some other really stupid stuff, which all made its way back to the office. And I got what was called an old-timey intervention. And an intervention is when they pack your bags. They pack one full of warm clothes and one full of cold weather clothes. And your boss and whoever in their family that they can round up, which was for me, my sister and my mother. And I walk into my favorite bar after work, and I look in the back, and there's my little old mother from North Carolina who's had a stroke and is all sick and everything, sitting next to my boss. And I thought, whatever this is, this can't be good. So I hightailed it and walked out. And fortunately, they had hired an interventionist who came and chased me down. And they all sat around and told me all the awful things that my addiction had done to them. And all the, disappointments and all the failures. And thankfully, we don't do interventions like that today. But that was how it was done for me. And I was sort of listening to all this stuff going, yeah, well, Dad did all this. Dad did all this to us. Dad did that. Always pointing fingers. Does that feel familiar to anybody in here where you point your fingers out when you want to not take responsibility for your own behavior? And my boss lowered the boom because at that point I had two things in my life, my job and using, nothing else, period. She said, if you don't take this opportunity to go to treatment, you're fired. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. That's the right answer. I'm going to treatment. And it's November, so I'm going to go to Florida, right? So off I go. I wanted to be different. There were a lot of little refined old lady alcoholics there. And I come in with my junkie pride and my black dark clothes in Florida when it's like 90 out. And trying to be different. Well, I don't want to go to those meetings. I want to go to NA meetings. I don't want to be with this old lady. She doesn't understand me. I'm urban. I'm chic. I'm trendy. And these old ladies, what do I have in common with them? And basically, one of those old ladies, excuse my French, told me to shut up, sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen. If we want to know how to use, we'll call on you. And otherwise, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. And people talk to you like that back then. There was none of this soft and fuzzy, no. And I needed that. Because I was a spoiled, entitled brat who was running around saying, I was turning into my mother without knowing it. If you had had a childhood like I did, you would have used too. At some point, you got to take personal responsibility, right? A lot of us have really shitty childhoods, and we don't go around destroying ourselves and everyone else in our paths around us. You figure out a way around it. You figure out how to make it stronger. You figure out how to share it with other people, so if they're feeling alone and isolated with this stuff, you can help them. I didn't know any of that then. I was just so self-involved, it wasn't even funny. And so I go to this place, and about 3 weeks in, I'm still busy doing this. About 3 weeks in, I'm starting to get nervous because I'd been stealing from my employer. And they were a large multinational accounting firm called Price Waterhouse. They did not like the notion that one of the employees had figured out a way to beat their accounting system, right? They wanted to keep that quiet because it's why are they handling multi-billions for all these corporations if you don't even have your own house in order and your employees are beating you on your petty cash, right? So I'd stolen about $30,000 in petty cash, okay? And without me being there to turn in false receipts, the jig was going to be up, right? Because you had to keep those fake receipts flowing to cover your tracks. So about three weeks in, I'm starting to think, well, maybe it is the drugs. Maybe it's not my mama. Maybe it's not my daddy. Maybe it's not generational addiction that goes with Irish people. Maybe it's that you're taking drugs and it's trashing and burning your entire life down. And right as that, I started having that realization that maybe I wanted to stop using drugs. The office calls the head of this place and says, basically, if she leaves, we're taking her to jail. We've found out enormous fraud. She's, done, and we're not sure yet whether she has a job or not when she comes home. All partners have to decide about this. So they didn't hide this from me. I knew it, and that kind of threw me off for a while. But I stayed for an extra week or two because I needed it, and I came with a desire to stop using. I came out of there with a desire to stop using. Now, did I stop using? No. But I'd had the first honest desire in my entire life. And I did that because I came back and I started going to meetings. And this is the one good thing about, like, the Looking for Love girl, is that meetings were like my hunting ground, right? I was, like, looking at all you fellas, like, nonstop, right? And I was kind of missing the point of while I was there, but it kept me coming back, right? I don't recommend it. But that was what kept me coming back at first, was looking for guys, looking for attention, looking to be needed, looking to be wanted, theme song of my life, right? So could not figure out how to get that from within yet. Just had no idea. Even though I was book smart, I was real book smart. I made A's and all that good stuff. And I could hustle too. I mean, I was hustling on Capitol Hill. That is not a non-hustling job when you're a lobbyist in D.C. You are hustling. But I could not find self-love within. I could not find self-acceptance from within. And this was the journey that my recovery took me on. And it's been the most important journey of my life. I am convinced I could have stopped using, but if I had not had self-acceptance and self-love, one of you guys would have taken me right out this door, or I would have allowed it, and I would have offed myself, because I was the type of girl, when you dump me, you better watch out. I was like Sybil. I took one guy who dumped me. He told me I wasn't the Marion type. I burned his parents' garage down to the ground after I took his pets out. Another guy had this nice Beamer. I fucking keyed that thing until it didn't even look like it was striped by the time I was done with it. I was psycho girl. I mean, literally. If you dumped me, or you told me I wasn't a Marion type, or you told me, we're not a thing, like, where are you getting this idea? This isn't happening. I would lose it. I would go into a fetal position. All this, we got a lot of great psychobabble names for it all. Fear of abandonment, whatever you want to call it, I had it in spades. I was just sick, and if you dumped me, I was out to get you. And even worse, if you had a new girl, she better watch out, because she was next. I mean, it was certifiable. I mean, literally. And I'm caught an arson charge behind this. This was not a joke. This kind of behavior, if you don't think drugs will kill you, that kind of behavior where you become obsessed with people and stalk them and destroy property around it, it'll get you locked up here just as sure as hell that drugs will, and keep you sick for life. And so that was the kind of woman I was. I came to the meetings. I was doing better. I got a home group. I got a sponsor. I'm sure y'all have heard all this stuff before, but it was essential for me, and it gave me a sense of belonging. And what did I tell you at the beginning? That's all I ever wanted. I wanted to belong and be a part of, and to be accepted, and being a part of Narcotics Anonymous gave me that home that I was craving. And, being obsessive like I was like coffee maker positions all over the place, but I was still flying like a moth to a flame to the most emotionally unavailable, sick bad boy I could possibly find. And then wondering, when I bought him a bunch of new clothes so I could take him up to Capitol Hill like he was some type of purse had on my arm, right? Why they would resent that. Can you imagine? Look at all I've done for you. I cleaned you up. I brought you to all these really fancy parties and stuff. And meanwhile, they're sitting there, tatted up and totally uncomfortable in this environment. I hadn't prepared them for it. I hadn't gotten them ready. And they're sitting there like, in a suit and tie, which they are totally uncomfortable in. And I'm wondering why they resent me. I literally could not figure it out. I thought I was doing something nice for somebody while I was basically sending them the message that I am not okay with you as you are. You're not enough. And that was the exact opposite of what I ever wanted to send to someone else, because that's how I felt. I felt I wasn't enough. But I didn't know I was using these guys as paper dolls to dress them up and, take them around. And finally, I was doing some step work, and I'm bemoaning to my sponsor, I've got so much success in all these areas of my life, but I'm such a failure in relationships. And I'm sure she was sick of hearing it from me, right? And she goes, Carol, did you ever realize that men have feelings too? And I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather. That was actually new information to me. I was so busy trying to score one of y'all that I had forgotten your humanity. I'd forgotten that you have insecurities, that you have fears, that maybe you're not comfortable with yourself. Like, all of that was foreign to me. I was just so busy trying to get one of y'all, I had just lost the whole touch. And I was objectifying men literally as like some new designer purse I needed to get to look a certain way. And so after that, I did that work in my 6th and 7th step when I stopped objectifying men. And she asked me to put a series of traits that I would want in a man. So I listed off probably 10 things, right? Sense of humor. Good looking wasn't on the top, but maybe it was in the top 3. Trustworthy was a big one, which was really important for slash and burn Hilda over here. Anyways, I had like 10 of them. And she gave me the list back, and she goes, well, good, get busy. You start being every single one of those things on that list, and then we'll talk. And because when you start being funny, when you start being trustworthy, when you start being decent, loyal, all these things you've put on your man, you will attract someone like that. But right now, you're needy, you're desperate, you're this, you're that, you're selfish, you're self-seeking. And you're going to keep getting what you've been getting if you keep being the same kind of person. And that really was a turning point in my life. And I got better with that until I didn't. I started palling around with some newcomer that dumped me. I had no business being with him. He also traded my BMW for crack. So that was a nice lesson I learned. I got back in parts. And that shook me up pretty good, gave me a big knock upside the head. And the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment about chasing younger newcomer men, having them trade my car for crack, it got all over the fellowship, as you can imagine. And I ended up using that as an excuse to use, and I had just shy of 6 years clean. And so I go to a convention in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, using. I'm driving all the way down there with drugs in my lap, right? 12 hours from D.C., or something like that, 10 maybe. And I get there, and the year before I'd gone, I was still clean, and we had brought a homeless guy from D.C. with us to this convention because he was the kind of guy, if you turn your back on him for a weekend, he was going to be off using again. So we were like, Tommy, just come on in the car. He had, an army jacket and combat boots. We took him right on the golf course with us, right? So we got split up into 2 different groups, and this homeless guy from D.C. gets put in my now husband's foursome, right? And so on the, when you play 18 holes at 9, you have this turn, and you can get a snack or go pee or whatever. And this guy, Tommy, he talked like this, and he's like, Carol, I met the man of your dreams. I was like, really, Tommy? What do you mean you met the man in your dreams? And I was trying to play it off like, oh, I'm over that. I'm not chasing men anymore. I'm just done. No, I'm serious. This guy is perfect for you. And I'm thinking, boy, I've really sunk to new lows that Tommy, the homeless guy, is trying to fix me up with people, right? So he introduces me to John. We met that year. He seemed a little arrogant, to me, and a little redneck, and that his accent, like I had all these quibble dibbles about, as if I don't have a Southern accent, right? But anyways, so I go the next year, and I'm gassed up. I'm whacked out of my mind. He still thinks I have 5 years clean. I'm showing up at this convention by myself, which was kind of a strange thing in and of itself, wasted. And I meet him again. And he says, "Are you playing in that golf tournament like you did last year?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "And you still don't have a boyfriend? You didn't have a boyfriend last year either, did you?" And I said, "No." "And do you have a boyfriend this year?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, let me save me and you both some time here. Are you gay?" And there's nothing in this world that's wrong with being gay. But at that time, when I was drunk and high, and some guy from Richmond's asking me if I'm gay because I play golf and don't have a boyfriend, I stamped my foot and charged off, and I went back to my girlfriend's that night. And I'm like, "Is it what I'm wearing? Why would this redneck from Richmond ask me if I'm gay?" And they're like, "Those guys down there, they don't get out much. Just, don't worry about it." So the next morning, I am hungover as hell, but I've committed to playing this golf tournament, and I had enough recovery in me that if you make a commitment, you show up when you say you're going to show up somewhere. So I'm in this golf tournament, my head's killing me, and my friend that was supposed to be playing with me, he's late, and I'm thinking, God, he's overslept, damn it. And all of a sudden, I hear this booming voice from off in the distance, "Well, good morning." And I'm looking over, and here comes John walking down towards my cart. And I'm thinking, "Oh, no, not this guy again. No." And he comes, I'm in the driver's seat, and he looks at me, he goes, "Slide over. We're playing together." I said, "No, we're not. No, Hampton Shattuck is playing in this seat. Is going to be in my cart with me. He's just late." He says, "No, as it turns out, he called the starter and said he wasn't coming, so you and I are going to be riding together." And I'm like, "Okay, God, I know you're punishing me for using and lying about it." Because meanwhile, I'm lying about this. I'm pretending like I'm clean, and I'm high as gas, right? And I've been doing this for probably 12 months at that point, carrying on like I'm clean when I'm not. You talk about guilt and shame. It was just oozing out of my pores. So John apologizes for saying, he said, "Yeah, I talked to my friends about that." And they were like, "You said what to her?" And, then he goes to tell me he's recently divorced. He doesn't get out much. He doesn't really know how to be with women anymore. He's been married for so long, and he's still learning the ropes. Please forgive him. Then I'm raising my 3-year-old daughter basically by myself. So now I'm starting to feel sorry for the guy, right? So by the end, he seems like a decent guy. So we go out to dinner, and we just fell for each other. And John finally caught on within 6 months that I was using, and I was visiting here. You can kind of get away with using when you don't live under the same roof, right? So I was in D.C., he was here, and I could play it off for a while until I couldn't, because, it gets worse and worse and worse, and it was. So he caught me red-handed because I was such a liar that unless you actually pulled the drugs out of my purse, I was not going to admit to it, which is what he did. And we circled 295 so many times while he was trying to convince me to get help again. Now, what I didn't tell y'all is by this point, doing this lobbying business, I had started lobbying for addiction and mental health companies. So I was the lobbyist for Hazelden, which is a big, rehab that I went to, Betty Ford Center, American Psychiatric Association. I had all these big name clients in the addiction field, and here I am supposing to be their face and voice of recovery on Capitol Hill, and was wasted as Billy be damned, right? And the guilt and shame associated that was killing me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was just a wreck, that I was such a fraud. I mean, just such a fraud. And so John knew that was the work I was doing, and then he knew that I was going to potentially flush it all down the commode, because I had a nice practice and career going by that point. I was one of those people that got into recovery and professionally just soared. And I was getting ready to flush it all down the toilet, and John kept me driving around 295, enough to where he had to get a couple tanks of gas. Because I was like, John, I could teach these rehabs. I've already been 3 times. Like, I'm an expert on the topic of addiction in Washington, D.C., a recognized expert, but I can't apply it to myself. I thought I was going to be one of those people that was too sick to get it. In fact, I was convinced of it and sort of thought that this was my familial birthright, that Irish alcoholics in my family die from it. They don't get well from it because no one had for 7 generations. So today, my life is much different. I married someone that I knew was as engaged in the fabric of recovery as they could be. And was I a little selfish at the beginning, hoping if I could get up in that mug that maybe I could get some clean time off of him through osmosis? I did. I kind of wanted to get in his pocket in the hopes that I wouldn't, because I was at the point I was going to kill myself if I kept using, and I knew it. I had already been getting wasted and playing Russian roulette, and I just knew I was going to off myself, because I had every type of trapping that you could have on the outside, but was miserable on the inside. And all the clothes and the cars and the house, it was just taunting me. That you're still miserable. Ha, ha, ha. You got all this stuff, and you're still miserable. And so, I did. I got in John's pocket. He saved my life. And he was a lot. I only had a year clean when I married him. I wouldn't recommend that. I should have had about 5, because I had to do a lot of standing up to him, because he's a lot, right? He's a lot. He tried to boss me around a lot, and that wasn't going to fly. I'm 39 when I marry him, right? I've been single a long time and self-supporting for a long time. I had a house full of my own stuff. He had a house full of his stuff. Nobody was going to start bossing me around at this age, right? So I was constantly having to push back and push back and push back. And we finally, we got the power differential straight, but it was a struggle his first couple of years of marriage, I'll be honest with you. And we still struggle sometimes, like all couples, but we have a foundation of love that we've built this life together on. And part of it is by helping people like you. That is built into the fabric of our love. I don't know if you've ever seen the logo of the McShin Foundation. I'm McDaid, and he's Shinholzer. That's where you get McShin from. But I had an art student at VCU who was in early recovery, and she designed our logo for us. And the heartbeat of McShin is the 2 hearts, and our love for each other is the foundation of how we started McShin, and our love for not only each other, but love for recovery. And that has cemented us. Is it for everyone? Do people call us all recovery all the time? You bet. And some addicts, we need that. I am one of those. I cannot do this thing halfway. And if you know you're like that, if you're the type of addict that wants to kill yourself using, you might want to join our club of people that do it all recovery all the time. I'm not saying you have to be that. There's plenty of people that join book clubs and sing in their church choir and do all kinds of stuff. We worship at the altar of recovery. We love God. We love every other religion too, but this is our passion, and it is at the foundation of our love. And if I had to, say anything else about that, is that for every morsel of love you give another addict, I have gotten it back tenfold. And that's a fact. That is just a fact. You will not lose by helping another addict in recovery. And I mean right here, right now, in the seat you're sitting in. And you will get such a kick in terms of feeling better about yourself from doing that. And that was the little mustard seed that my faith was built on at the beginning. That really was. It was the juice that kept me going. And now, helping women in particular, for a sponsor, I always keep 9 or 10 sponsees. And helping these women has helped me be better people. It's helped me be less hard on myself. We at our house, we have an open door policy, right? If you're in recovery, you're welcome in our home. And that's always been like that. And it's particularly true during the holidays. We have a big party, which we have a lot of help from people to help make that happen. And, you know, some of my neighbors are like, you know, you let those people? And I'm like, we're those people, right? And it's so funny. We'll have, you know, literally 200-300 addicts at our house in recovery, and their family and their friends and our neighbors and our families. We had an open house just for our neighborhood one time. It was like 25 people. They trashed my house. I had red wine everywhere and spilt stuff everywhere. And then I think I've had one thing broken in, how long have we been doing that party? 23 years, yeah. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I wanted y'all to know a little bit about who and what I am, and how you can recover not only from drug addiction, but from love addiction, from low self-esteem, from self-loathing that you think you were born with and you're going to be stuck with the rest of your life. You can, and we do, recover from all of that. If no one's told y'all that, if no one's told you that they've loved you today, hear it from me. Love you guys.
Anybody got any questions for Carol? Carol, be prepared for questions.
Okay.
The sheriff come to our Christmas party this last year. She knew 3/4 of the people at our party.
She did.
It took her an hour to walk 30 feet, man. Any questions? Thoughts, comments, questions?
Alcohol, heroin, and cocaine.
How old were you when you got Hep C?
16. I was, just because my mother didn't want me to, I hung around with what's known as reform school boys back then. And I would do this. So I wasn't like some, big, wild, junkie, but it was all for attention, right? If this is what the boys were doing, I'd hold out my arm and they'd shoot me up. So that's when I got it, because we passed
Her
them.
drug of choice was yours. If you
Yeah,
were using drugs and she was around, you
Yeah.
better lock it up, because it's going to disappear.
Yeah.
It'll be gone.
Yeah. I'd use anything, but those were my favorite.
Anybody else? What y'all think? Can you relate? Yeah.
Yeah. Give a hand for them country guys and girls from Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah, I was back there listening.
Yeah.
I mean, I
What do y'all think? Should we go another round on the chocolate tonight?
I want to die, man.
I'm the one that eats it, not you.
Hey, Carol. I loved it. I loved it because the part I could relate to was, like this stuff, man, about this low self-esteem and this low self-worth. We get this stuff 15, 16, 17 years old, and we carry that stuff with us, man, for 20 years.
Well, you get it as a kid, most people.
Yeah.
Most of us are trauma survivors, whether you know it or not. Not everybody, but a lot of us are.
Yeah.
I see Brandon in the back. You snuck up in here.
Yeah.
Are you here? No, you just a visitor. All right, just checking, man.
Hey, John, we say you just had to check.
Yeah. Any of the peanut gallery want to say anything? Barbie, Robert, Brandon?
Anybody else have unhealthy relationships seeking like I do? Raise your hand.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
The rest
I got
of them
my
are lying.
people. I got my people. Anybody else go Sybil and tear shit up if you get dumped?
Of course.
Yeah.
She was like, not
Yeah, not yet.
She said she only just keyed a couple of calls.
Well, yeah.
Bobby.
Come talk to me if you are, and you're too embarrassed to say it.
Barbara, you got something?
I'm just going to say I'm a proud member of McShin, and I love that place. If you guys ever get a chance, just keep coming back and they'll start paying you.
I got you. Yeah, well, you ain't going to make much. I promise you that. Yes, sir.
Do you have any facilities in Petersburg?
We don't, but I think nowadays there are recovery community organizations all across Virginia and a lot of America. Petersburg does. They got several organizations down there. If you seek them, you'll find them. You can't not find them down there. I know that Christian place is down there that married couple runs it. I don't know the name of it though, but that's Yeah, they're great. You know, so
Pretty much everywhere in Virginia now.
if you want to start a place down at Lake McShin, I'll give you all of our information, man. I mean,
Who said they would start a place like McShin?
well, they're all over America like McShin, but I'll give you our intake package, our policies, our procedures. I mean, we got a shelf of them. You know, yeah.
We're not the softer and easier way though.
No. But if you do it right. Do it like we do it. You know, we got good controls, good ethics. We're transparent. You know.
We drug test people with very powerful drug tests and do it
How y'all been anyway?
random.
How many of y'all think this is what we're doing is helping? What the sheriff's doing helping? Being here is helping? I see most heads bobbing. If your head ain't bobbing, you're still in denial. You ain't let go. You ain't surrendered. This is one of them things to save your ass. You better surrender.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we all got that in common. Surrender.
Get off the fence. Stop straddling the fence.
Yeah. Oh God. Half measures avail us nothing.
Yeah.
I give you a visual. Figure a picket fence. You know, the pointy ones. You got 1 foot on one side, 1 foot on the other, and your feet are resting on ice blocks, and that ice is melting. You know, sooner or later, you better get on one side or the other, and you better get on the recovery side because you don't want to be on the wrong side. I see we got one of our former speakers in the back. Any words of wisdom? You give a strong talk last time you were up in here, man. What's it? I forget your name.
My name's Tom. I'm Great Recovery.
You remember? Yeah, well, they got to hear you on Facebook, on YouTube.
How's everyone doing this evening? You guys look great, absolutely amazing. And all I want to share is just hold on to that willingness. Hold on to that willingness and that desire to do the next right thing and to understand that the promises do come true. If you're tired of the pain that you've had, if you're tired of dealing with the four hideous horsemen, bewilderment, terror, frustration, and anger. And for me, I saw those faces in my family. When I looked at them, the terror about the things that I was doing, I was terrorizing my family. They were bewildered by it. They were angry and they were frustrated because they did not know how to help me. I saw it when I was in a trap house buying drugs. I saw it for myself firsthand. And the pain got greater as I continued to do the things that I was doing. And when I got tired, but I continued to run from the withdrawals, but I'd had enough pain. And divine intervention stepped in. And I was arrested in this very jail. And I was placed here. And I continued to call the people that I was dealing with in the street for about 2 weeks until I came to the understanding that they did not have my best interests at heart. So I had to put the focus on God and myself. Place myself in the program here, the RISE program. I was here for 39 days that particular time. I got on a medication called Vivitrol. See, I had to put the focus on Tanya, what was going to work for me. Then I went to an outpatient program for 21 days. And from there, I continued to watch God show up and operate in my life for my greater good. Is every day a great day? No. But every day is a good day when I wake up and I don't put one in me. Because I know what that's going to look like for me. And as I stated, I've had enough of that pain. I was ready for something better. So much better on this side because, see, when life shows up in my adult kids, when life shows up in my own life, I don't have to run and hide in a drug or an alcohol. I have coping skills to help me deal with it. I have a support system. And what we all have is this group conscience, this loving group conscience that supports, that heals, that communicates, that understands, that holds compassion, that has integrity. When you work an honest program, you take your power back. Take your power back. Take your power back by being able to tell yourself the truth about yourself. Take your power back by saying, yes, I did that, and it's okay. Because, see, that wasn't me then. I'm not that person today. See, when I can put it out there for myself, then I can snatch my power back. and no one holds that power over me. Because it's okay. Because see, that says who I once was, not who I am today, or if tomorrow comes, who I will be tomorrow. So let the new you, the renewed you, the transformed you, the most powerful you, your most authentic self show through. And what can happen is when you make a decision to do your internal work. And that's the hard part. Don't run, because that's where your healing takes place. You can stop using the drugs, but only can you stay stopped when you do your inner work. Don't be afraid to face you. Look at that man or that woman in the mirror and love yourself today, just as you are, and be grateful for where you are, because obviously in this moment is where you need to be. You didn't lose your life in the madness. You still have your sanity intact. You're in your right mind. Someone does not have a life or in their right mind. But by the grace and mercy and favor of God, we are still here by purpose. So continue to work on yourselves while you're here and walk out of that door with new life. It's the difference between death and life. And it's spoken that way in the Bible, death and life. You made a decision to live because you're a part of this process. You've chosen to live and not die. So what is that going to look like for you? Be grateful for this new life, for this process, for the support system, because there's much love here. And you're here to get better, and you will. Don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. I'm Tanya again, a grateful recovering addict.
You know, I'll give you a quick hit. I got clean. I was 6,000 miles from Richmond. I didn't ask anybody for anything outside of my local recovering community and the people, my new association. And I took the suggestions of my employer, United States Marine Corps at the time, and I followed the suggestions to do the treatment, the outpatient, the therapy, the meetings. But the truth is, anytime I felt like I wanted to work John's Anonymous, I turned to my recovering people, my sponsor. And we got a good prop here tonight. I'm looking at Brandon over there. Brandon, just raise your hand so they can all see you. Brandon is a guy, every time I've seen him multiple times look to the recovering community to get his direction in life. He didn't ask anybody outside for anything, but he got it from the recovery folk. Guess what? He got success in clean time. But every time he went the other way to get suggestions, he ended up back usually in one of them chairs. You know, don't let that be your story, you know. Just stick with the good information, follow those suggestions, all be well. But if you say your name first and then put the anonymous word after it, that program ain't gonna work. Just a heads up. Anything else, Carol? Marshall?
No, I don't think so.
It's Sheriff's probably waiting on her Valentine's Day dinner right now. We don't want to hold her back no more. It's Valentine's Day night. Some of us got wives and husbands. Of course, my wife knows where I'm at. All right.
That's right. That's right.
Anything else, Marshall?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Any other last thoughts, comments, questions?
Yep,
Art,
back
Steve,
again.
thanks for coming out, setting up. Thanks for having us, Chef. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah, get them donuts. Good job.